Welcome to Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price and Markey here in the studio in downtown Charlottesville. Big thanks to our sponsor, our good friends, the Jefferson School Foundation here in Charlottesville, Virginia. We are... What do we usually riff something here? What are we doing? What's going on this week? Weather's nice again.
The weather is nice. Angie Stone has sadly passed away. May she rest with all the greats.
Yeah.
In musical heaven.
What's your Oscars take?
Oh, please don't.
All right, we'll get there.
I'm gonna get kidding. Amelia Perez should not be winning an award.
So I don't know anything about that, but everyone seems upset about it.
That means if the whole public is upset, then the Oscars doesn't make sense.
So why?
Cheryl Lee Ralph, do you know?
Yes.
From Abbott Elementary.
Is
She's
that
not from Abbott Elementary. My girl has a career.
Listen.
She has a career.
Sure.
Okay,
sure.
Broadway and above. But from Abbott Elementary, for those who don't know, she was on there and she was like, if you go and look at the Best Actors Awards for women who've won, it's about the kind of thing that Hollywood likes. It's like, you need to be doing nudity scenes. It needs to be about sex work. It needs to be about, those types of things.
Okay.
And those are people who, they brought up Halle Berry, like the scene she did to win her Oscar. Like she had to.
It was a Monster, right?
Yeah, she had to do things that people, who aren't famous can't do on tape, essentially.
Or people got famous doing.
Right. So, Hollywood has a idea of what women should win for.
Okay.
And if they don't do those things, you can't win. Not that your film isn't great, but Hollywood has a specific type of formula for who wins.
So what was this? Because all I've heard is the movie's terrible, the music's terrible.
I don't want to talk about it. Well,
I don't know anything about it.
It's about Mexico. It's about a Mexico drug cartel.
Okay.
But it's also a musical.
Right.
And the drug cartel leader transitions.
Interesting.
Like medically transitions.
No, I got it.
Okay. And then they're singing throughout.
Mostly in musicals, there is a fair bit of singing.
So
interesting. Okay. All right. Any other highlights before we get into this?
Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande did a 6-minute performance for promo for Wicked, and it was amazing.
Okay.
Yes.
You're still high on your Wicked train?
Still so high.
Have you seen
put
Wicked?
it in my veins.
I have.
Did you like it?
It was good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was crying. Yeah. I saw it 3 times.
I know I've asked you this, but was that the first time you'd seen? Was that the first?
No, I went to New York and saw it in Broadway.
You saw it, okay.
On Broadway, but didn't move me like. I mean,
Did
I thought
you
it was
see
great.
like Dina Menzel and?
No.
Oh,
I didn't know.
Okay.
I did not see Miss Adina. No, but I did see it on Broadway before it came out, and so I liked the concept. I understood the story, but seeing it on screen with a
Did you like the way they adapted it?
I thought it did a lot of drawing out.
Yeah.
Because
when
you see a
whole
stage
act
play
one
that's
is
2
the full,
hours.
Yeah.
When you see a stage play that's 2 hours and then you go to the movie and they're like, we're gonna do things that took 2 seconds. We're gonna have it drawn out for this movie.
You're right.
We're gonna see the countryside. We're gonna see
That's right.
all this stuff. It's like, hold up, girl. I know y'all did this in 5 seconds on stage.
That's right.
Why is it taking so long? So it felt super long to me without the intermission and without all that stuff. And they did the whole story.
That's right.
On the play, and now they only did half.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's
but
right.
I did love it.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how they get, because it seems to me again so much of, at least in my recollection, the greatest hits of Wicked are in Act 1.
Yes, they're in trouble.
Right?
They're in trouble.
I have
they gonna have to write their music tails off.
Right. Like I have a vivid memory of seeing it, and I had the chance to see Adina in that group on Broadway. But I remember the way they do Defying Gravity for her is she's floating in the whole thing and belting. And I remember. It was a weird experience because she sings that at the end of Act 1.
Yes.
Right? And the place was silent.
Yes.
People were like, what just happened?
And then they come back and sing For Good.
And then they come right.
And sing I'm blanking right now.
Well, it comes, and the second act's great, but it is when you have that, you crescendo to that.
It's a shame.
And you go to an intermission in a play and you come back, you're like, wow, that was great. I can't wait to see what's next. Now, how long are we going to wait for this? For 9... 2 years later,
but I heard they've written some new songs.
Okay,
so they're gonna have to. They're gonna have to write. So they're gonna have to be writing. So we do cultural stuff at the beginning. Sorry, we should have mention that. But
the most important person here is indeed Dr. Tamara Ryan, who is the coordinator of equity and inclusion with Albemarle County. Thank you for joining us and indulging us in our what usually goes off the rails. We do love musical theater. Yeah.
I enjoy musical theater too. So
good. Well, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you all
I'm
today?
good. So we're gonna run the same bit back that we did last week, and this whole running joke of like, Dr. Tamara Ryan, do you and should you require people to call you doctor? You worked hard for that. We said this last week. I would be throwing that around to everybody. Every
my
single
mama
person.
at dinner, it's doctor.
At Starbucks,
it's Dr. Daughter.
Dr. Price. Forget about it.
My daughter does laugh, and when I received my doctorate, she did ask me if she could call me Dr. Mommy.
Dr. Mama. Yes.
So,
That's
Big
a
Sister General.
hard yes. That's a hard yes.
course.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a
call me
requirement. That's not
Dr.
even a request.
Mommy.
I would. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful.
For folks who haven't had the chance to work with you, or have not had the chance to meet you, can you give us a little background? Let's the way we typically do this is we just try and go quasi chronologically until we find an off ramp, and then we run hard in that direction. So start from the beginning. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, and then we'll trace a path to Charlottesville and start talking about the work.
Sure. So I actually grew up in South Hill, Virginia. It's on the border of North Carolina. Some people have or have not heard of it.
Yeah, that's right.
I have not heard of it.
Really?
No.
It's south of Petersburg. Petersburg, off of Interstate 85, yeah. And then I went to Hampton University. HU.
Is that the real HU?
We're the real HU.
I always like to start drama, okay?
That's right.
We are the real HU.
Yeah, that's right.
So went to HU, ended up going off to Tennessee, getting a job in paralegal studies.
Okay.
And so got a job. My first job was in government.
Yeah.
And working for the district attorney there for child support enforcement.
Wow.
Yes. Wow. And so I was about 21, 22 years old at that point in time. Yeah.
So you're from Virginia. You stuck around Virginia, and then what did the job take you to Tennessee? Was it just kind of that I'm done with school, I'm gonna go?
So I took a path of allowing myself to be convinced to get married very young.
Okay.
Which did not work out.
You worded that in a way
I love that. I love the way you worded that. I need to write that down.
Didn't work out.
Sure.
But I got a beautiful daughter from that.
That's right.
She's 31 now, so she's doing fantastic.
Yeah.
But so that is how I ended up there. He was in the military at the time. So he was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, part of the base is in Kentucky, part of it is in Tennessee. So
Gotcha.
Why HU?
So I grew up around a village of people, and particularly my teachers. I must say I had wonderful Black teachers who encouraged me to look at HBCUs. And I looked at Hampton. I visited Hampton, and I knew that it was my home by the sea.
I think you always know. I knew. As soon as you go, you're like, oh, well, if I get into here, it's this one.
It really was. It felt like home.
Yeah.
It just, everything resonated with me, and I have not looked back.
Yeah.
I've never looked back.
That's excellent. So Tennessee, and you're doing, what did you study at Hampton?
So I studied English.
Okay.
I originally actually went on a full bio pre-med. Yes.
Is that right?
What to do?
Yes.
Medical? I don't know what.
Yeah, so I was pre-med.
Okay.
So what was it? Was it the organic chemistry?
It was actually microbiology.
Okay. I've heard from everyone
I've heard
that's
the
done
chemistry
that.
too.
It's that, or it's like I took that one orgo class, and I was like, you know what?
Yeah. After chemistry and a biology class, I was like, I don't want to do this. So I disappointed my parents.
It's better to do it early than do it late.
That's
exactly.
true.
And
that
I
is
did
true.
It early.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
Yeah, you can't get into like a residency and be like, well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank God I did it early.
Yeah. So transition out, and then you said you studied English.
Did you want to be a writer?
Yeah. What was that?
I actually thought about going to law school.
Okay, sure.
Yes. So I thought about going to law school, but at that point I had my daughter. Of course, having gone through the divorce, I was being a single mom.
All still in school.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually decided to get my master's degree.
Her
dad
sure
was very involved in her life. I must say, I must give him credit.
Yeah.
But still and yet, we weren't in the same city or the same town.
Right. So you're in school.
Yes.
With a kid. Having just gone through a divorce. And your thought is, let's go more school.
Masters.
I decided to go for that master's degree.
When life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Wow.
That's what the masters would have been for me. So I was like, you know what? So much is going on. Masters.
Let's add something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's add something else.
I did.
And so masters in
public administration and public policy.
Okay. And what was as you're doing this, are you thinking of just like, these are things that I'm interested in that I think would benefit me later? Did you have a clear line on like, I'm doing this because I want to be the mayor, I want to, this is what I want to do? Or was it just kind of like broadly, this will be good for me somehow in some way?
Yeah, well, government was a perfect fit for me. I love public service. I grew up with a family of people who believed in serving the community.
Yeah.
My dad, my grandmother's house was called the Little House by the Road because people were always coming there.
Is that right?
And sometimes we didn't even know who was in the house.
Really?
Yeah, but there would be people in the bed. There would be people eating the food, and it's like, who are you?
Yeah.
That's what a public servant looks like.
Yes,
that's
what public service looks like. So it was just a perfect fit for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
So what came of masters and then?
Yeah, so actually when I got my master's, I had moved back to Virginia, and I was working for Richmond City Council. I started out working as the legislative writer and the paralegal to the city attorney.
Okay.
And but then a position came open in working for city council, and so I served as the deputy city clerk and managed the city council offices and the city clerk's offices.
Wow.
So,
cool.
Yeah, so.
And then that transitioned to Charlottesville.
Yeah, so I decided to get remarried. Finished my master's degree.
Congratulations on the master's and the marriage.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
3 M's.
I'm a busy lady.
Mother, master, married.
Still. Yeah, don't ever sleep on me. I don't sit still. I don't let grass grow under my feet. So he convinced me to move to Charlottesville.
Okay.
Yeah. But funny thing is that when I moved to Charlottesville, I didn't get into government right away.
Okay.
I actually opened a business called Plato's Closet.
Yes.
What?
You opened Plato's Closet?
Yes.
What?
We got a celebrity in the building.
Come on.
Hold up.
What?
We stayed at Plato's Closet when I was growing up.
Yes.
This is
Actually,
crazy.
That is how I remember your mother.
Yes. She
your aunts.
still to this day, she bring her basket full of clothes to Plato's.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So that
wow.
is,
What made you do that? Like,
well, I grew up again with a family. My mom and dad owned 3 businesses growing up. So
family of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, them and one of my uncles was in business with my father. So I grew up at 9. I was typing my first construction contract.
Businessman,
as one does. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I still ain't typed my first.
That's right. I was about to say, I'm still waiting on mine.
So that's why I say no grass has ever grown under my feet.
Okay. Oh, hold on.
This is my mom. My mama's gonna hear this and know I'm with a celebrity.
So,
she's gonna be so jealous.
And how did that idea come to fruition, right? Because that feels very nonlinear given what you had been doing.
Yes.
So where did that come from? And where did it come from to the degree, I think someone, like you who has a mind for it, I'm sure you have 1,000 ideas. Why did that one stick?
That stuck because I loved clothing that other people had. So I grew up with aunts who were just a few years older than me, and I stayed in their closets.
Yeah.
So anytime that they were getting rid of something, it's like, oh, I want that. Or I would just kind of like take it and
take it. That's what I did in my
Sure.
I just take it.
Yeah.
Her closet, like, this is the store now.
You know, that's the girl. You know,
That's right.
that's what we do. So yeah, so it was just natural. My husband, when I first moved here, he was like, "You've worked hard. How about just doing something for yourself?" And so I thought about it. I was like, "What would be right?" And I was like, I have always loved clothes. I love teenagers, and my daughter was a teenager too at the time. So it was just like, I'm gonna do Plato's Closet.
Are you into? So you're into fashion?
I love fashion. You can.
Yes, like, I love this cardigan.
I love fashion. I'm always in 4-inch heels, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, give me shoes, give me clothes. I'm happy.
That is that's wild. And we do have to remember that if you were just jumping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price, Markey, Dr. Tamara Ryan here in the booth, and a big thanks to our sponsors, the Jefferson School Foundation. So how long did you and that's a franchise agreement, right?
It is. It is a franchise.
And so how long did you run that for?
I ran it for 6 years, almost 7 years, and then I sold it in 2013. I started it in 2007 and sold in 2013.
And what was that like? Good, bad, fun, stressful, all of the above?
All of the above. All of the above. Yeah. So
How was and I've read a bunch of stuff about, there's such variety in franchise agreements, right? And there's some that they have like, you got a high buy-in, but they give you a lot of stuff. Some you're sort of on your own and da-da-da. Was the structure of that, for you as someone who, you hadn't done that before, had you?
No, not a franchise.
Did you feel like, I'm just curious, like when you did it, did you feel like, okay, cool, there's enough structure to do this? Did you have to figure a bunch of stuff out? Like, how did you sort of go about, because again, it's like, that's not an insignificant investment. It's not an insignificant amount of time, right? It's not like, oh, you launched it and like it worked. So did you learn on the fly? Did you have people around you that were like, hey, do this, don't do this?
So I researched different businesses. It was the best business model that I found. And it's called Windmark Corporation.
Yeah. Okay.
And so they do, in fact, Played Again Sports, Once Upon a Child.
Got it. Okay.
Yes, Closed Mentor. So so they were very well versed in resale. And I went to visit them in Minnesota, and they sat me down, like you said, told me all about the model, what help I would be given. And I just thought, I was like, this is perfect, because I did have a business partner who would help me make sure that she was always looking at my numbers, and we were on a monthly basis doing different things. But I did have to pay that royalty. There was a percentage of but it was very worth it because they gave me a point of sale system, so it was very easy to ring in what item the clothes were and being able to price it and to be fair to everybody. So it wasn't someone just looking and saying, oh, I'll give this person $1.
That's right. Funny corollary. I went out my second job. My first job was at Court Brothers. My second job was at Played Again Sports.
Cool.
And so that one right on 29. Right on 29.
So
next to Court Brothers, right? Did you walk across the street to the next interview?
Yes. I grew up in Woodbrook. I was all like, I had a radius.
He did the radius.
I'm done working here. The doors are closed. I'm gonna walk across the street.
You're gonna pay me $7. You're gonna pay me $8. I'm in. Come on, man. I'm in for the big money. So why'd you sell it?
It just did. The stress level became too much for me at the time, and particularly, again, having a teenage daughter who I needed to keep my eyes on. Exactly. Yeah. And my father actually passed away in the midst of it.
Oh, okay.
And he was very high strung like me.
Okay.
And so I thought to myself, he passed away at a very young age from a massive heart attack, and I said, I'm not going to do that.
Wow.
To myself.
Okay.
So it made me pull back and say, you know what, it's time to make some changes.
Was that a hard transition? Was it the answer to that is yes, but was it hard contextualized with Was it something that you did and were like, I'm ready to do this and it's the right thing to do? Or did you feel like because of sort of those interacting factors, right? I have to be a mom. I'm worried, at least to a degree, about my own health, and I'm ripping and running. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
did you feel like, did you miss it? Or were you kind of like relieved that you were going to do the next thing?
I was relieved. I was surely relieved because, like you said, it's like, okay, I've got to take care of myself.
Yeah, sure.
I can't take care of everybody else around me if I'm not taking care of myself.
That's right.
And so, so it was a relief. I did not look back.
Yeah, okay. You don't miss it?
Self-care is revolutionary.
Every so often I miss it, and then I think of the stress, and I go, yeah, never again.
That's how I feel about having more kids. I'm like, you know what?
You just hurt your leg. I feel like you don't need no more. Like,
Here's the thing.
You can't rip and run too much muck.
The 4-year-old, dream child.
She's the first one is the
Helpful.
best, I hear.
Oh, man. She's lovely.
Yeah.
That second one, boy, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Luckily, he's still small enough that I can just pick him up by his legs.
How old is he now?
2.
Yeah, that happened to my parents too. But my mom always says, she was like, you're such a good child, and we just assumed that like this is how children were.
No.
And then they had my brother, and my mom still talks about like how he caused so much like stress
Just
for her.
havoc.
She used to like lose him in the stove. Like we was at King the Million once, and he walking around, we lost it. Go to the next security guard, tell him make an announcement. We done lost the kid.
Yeah.
Like he was just so rambunctious. Like
Just
she was
high
like,
energy,
I didn't
yeah.
know this is what my second child and my first boy
Exactly.
was gonna be like.
Yeah.
She was like, if I could go back and make some changes.
Yeah.
Shout out
man.
to him though.
Oh, yeah. They're so much fun. But it is exactly that. The first one, and I've heard the first girl, too. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the only experience I have.
Yes.
But this kid, man, let me tell you what.
They're smart. They're
I came
cool,
down the other
like
day. She
chill.
didn't just dress. She dressed him.
Oh,
She was like,
okay, mother.
right?
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how it is. I also used to dress my brother.
Yeah.
I had to get us on the bus. I put his clothes on, put my clothes
Sure,
on, get us to
yeah.
the bus, walk us to the
You're
down
doing a better job than I am.
Right.
That's crazy. Okay, so 2013.
Yes.
What's next? Do you take any time off? Were you like, I took 6 months, I traveled, I read a book, I took a nap,
I did not, but that will come.
Okay.
In 2013.
That's still on the list to take a nap?
Yeah, so I had just happened to meet someone in the senior living business.
Okay.
And assisted living, senior living, memory care.
Okay.
And they own 23 properties here in Virginia.
Wow.
Yes, very large company,
Okay.
very well-known organization. And I became their regional director of human resources and director of training.
Okay.
Yes. So that is where I went in 2013.
Wow.
I transitioned immediately. In fact, I had the job before I had even
Sold the business.
sold the business.
There won't be a day where I'm unemployed.
I have never been
No
unemployed. I have
Wow.
never been just unemployed. No.
Wow.
And how was that all of this while also like how do you account for motherhood during these types of transitions in your life? Like now you've had your child when you were in your master's,
Yeah.
motherhood as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. Like tell us a little bit about how that worked for you and like the highs and the lows of motherhood during these transitions in your life.
During these transitions, my daughter, as you said, she was great. I cannot complain. I really did get lucky.
And if you do,
the
she'll
first
be
time
on. She'll
around.
be over here to get you.
She would.
Is she still local?
No, she lives in Hampton.
Oh, okay.
She went to Old Dominion University.
Yeah, sure.
and,
Yes.
So she
That's right.
loves the Tidewater
Yeah.
area.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's nice. They've done a lot down there.
They've done so
Yeah.
much.
They
Yeah.
have.
ODU was
So-
up and
It is.
Oh,
It
so
really
yeah.
is.
They did have
Yeah.
a shooting there.
They did.
I don't, just to bring in local
Well, they
news.
did even when she was there
They had
as a
shooting there?
student.
Oh, sure.
and
Oh, I
it's
thought that was
Yeah.
the first time that ever happened.
No.
Oh,
it's-
Newport News?
Oh,
Child.
No, Norfolk.
Yeah, Norfolk. Yeah.
Norfolk.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I was at William Mary, and so there was,
Oh,
we
okay.
split, go back and
Exactly.
blah, blah, blah. But yeah, no, it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
though,
definitely.
For sure.
It is. It's
Yeah.
a great school.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
nice
great
area.
school.
Yeah.
It is.
It is. I used to always say that I was like, I could never go to school that close to the beach.
Oh
Oh, she stayed
would
at the
stay
beach.
That's crazy.
I had to call and make sure she was not at the beach.
I would
'cause
be
she
at the
loves
beach.
boogie board
Like, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was in
She
Williamsburg and found every excuse, right?
to get to
To
the
drive
beach.
down there.
Or even just to not go to class.
Yeah.
With nothing else to do, right? If I had in this time of year when it's coming into spring,
Exactly.
like, come on now, that's
I love a
crazy.
beach.
That's
Every
too
time
much.
I go to a beach, I'm like, I can't leave. I gotta change my life up to be out here somehow.
I had some friends who went to UNC Wilmington, and I was like, "No, this is crazy." Because like UNC Wilmington, even like that like Wrightsville Beach,
Right.
their house was like their house was a beach house.
Wow.
I'm like, this is too much.
Oh, my
This is,
goodness.
and then you leave college and you're like, time to go to work. I'm like, nah. You spent the last 3 years living on. No, nope. We got to prepare ourselves better for that.
Exactly.
That's cool. So okay, so you're doing your work in the this is 2013. That takes you to when? Sort of 2018.
Takes me to 2017.
17.
Yeah.
Okay.
2017, and that is when I decided to take a sabbatical from
Finally,
work.
all
First
right.
time in my life.
Finally, this
Yes, I was
happened
like
to me.
exhausted.
Yeah, sure.
I was exhausted, and I was like, okay, time to just stop, regroup,
Yeah.
and think about, okay, where do I want to go from here? And I went back to what I knew I loved, and that was public service, and that is
Yeah.
how I ended up in Albemarle County.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And when did the doctorate part start?
So I had actually started my doctorate degree years before, when I was still working in the city of Richmond. And
Oh,
had finished
really?
my master's. I went directly into a
Oh, okay.
program. But
Okay.
at VCU, you had to be on campus.
Okay.
So
What a terrible
traveling, right? I know my husband.
You can't even be no adult and get to go to work.
It had to
Yeah,
be love.
true.
It had to
Yeah.
be love. So,
Sure.
yeah, that allowed me to be pulled away from that. So when I started working for Albemarle County,
Yeah.
I got back into
it.
my doctorate program.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay, that's
Yes,
interesting.
Yes.
And that program was focused on what?
So it was focused on adult education.
Okay.
Yes, and my specialty is performance improvement leadership. Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yes.
And so so we're in Albemarle County. We're in the now.
Yes.
So tell us about what's going on right now.
Oh my goodness. Well, of course, the federal the new federal administration, presidential administration, of course, making DEI.
Sure.
I am in diversity, equity, and inclusion. So it is right now. It's kind of tricky ground.
Sure.
Though we don't necessarily. Our office doesn't receive any federal dollars, but the county does receive federal dollars.
That's
But as of now, we're plugging along. We're doing what we have been doing. We're continuing to move forward. And so, but it is still, it feels a little weird because everybody's talking about DEI and getting rid of DEI.
I also that is my role, girl.
Are they gonna? Is there a real conversation? Are you gonna have to change your title? Or are you gonna have to change what the name or what you call it or blah blah blah? Like, is that a real thing that's potentially on the horizon?
That is potentially on the horizon. Yeah, just to be able to continue to move forward, still be able to do the work, but it not have those trigger words of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which now are trigger words.
Right. Which I think is particularly hilarious because well, I'm just interested at what point in sort of the etymological history did DEI mean black people stuff?
Dude,
Right?
Yeah.
Because aren't some of the biggest beneficiaries of DEI initiatives white women and veterans?
You know who it
Actually,
is.
yes.
You know who it is.
Since the Civil Rights Act of 1964, when you look at it, the 2020 studies and 2022 studies all show that actually, yes, it's actually white women who have benefited the most from DEI.
I think about historical context of lots of words, like this idea, the narrative that people paint of the welfare queen. I studied African American studies at UVA, so we talked a lot about like these narratives that people make. So like the welfare queen is, who do you think of? Right, we're in a class. It's like, what do you think of when you think of the welfare queen? Like we're thinking black woman, 6 kids on the couch, right? She doesn't work. She's but it's like, oh, but black women aren't the sole beneficiaries of welfare, right? That's a narrative that's on purpose to create this narrative of who is the person getting essentially off on the government's work, right? So I think it's a narrative.
Well, it's that. Look, I think we could probably agree that one of the greatest grifts in modern history is rich people convincing poor people that brown people took their stuff.
Exactly, and that is what's pretty much happening right now. Is that they think that brown people are taking their stuff, and so that is how it has been spun.
Yeah, and I think you're right on it, and I wonder, I'd be interested to, I mean, both of you, but how much of the work is, I think that there was the moments in years past you've probably had to do a little less education, right? You had to do a little less like, hey, by the way, let's contextualize what we're talking about. You could do more work. You could say, we have sort of agreed that what we're doing is being done in a certain way. I think now we're sort of back to this place where we have to sort of go a couple steps backwards and be like, hey, let me explain to you what words mean.
You have to teach.
I have been doing a lot of teaching and a lot of education. Yeah. And it's amazing how people, after I teach the class, they go,
is that right?
That's happened to me before, too.
Really?
Yeah. Individuals, like, like, hey, if you just understood this thing.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I didn't know.
They didn't. They didn't.
And I think it's hard for a person who does know to be like, oh, well, we're all adults. Like, but you have to give grace to those people that aren't in a position to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially when there are active forces against you to make sure you don't know. I think education is the most important thing.
The largest group that I have taught is white men.
Sure.
Who really and truly either didn't know what DEI was, or they had a thought of it's something being taken from me.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that? Are you finding that it is very sort of zero-sum game-ish? Like, the only way for you to improve is for me to lose? Like, that's kind of how it's been presented, right? It's like there's a finite amount of whatever it is.
Yes, that is how it has been spun, as if, there's so much here, and you're trying to take my pot and run away with it.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Leave me with nothing.
That's exactly right. Can you, so in your role, right, and as a countywide role, what does that look like? Right, like just,
programming.
Yeah. Give us a little bit of a flavor of what are you doing day to day?
Yeah, so day to day, I do a lot of research around what's happening with DEI, but showing statistics, showing who is being helped, and showing who actually is benefiting, but also looking at those who need the help.
Okay.
And what locations, particularly in Albemarle County, where the disparities are, and bringing a highlight to our leadership to say, hey, this area, in fact, we're working on what we call an equity profile with the University of Virginia right now. One was done back in 2019. And so we are redoing it, and the disparities are very blaring.
Is that right?
Yes.
What does an equity profile consist of? I'm sorry.
So it consists of looking at age, race,
like demographic
data, but then also looking at education attainment, life expectancy, income by household. Okay. It's amazing, the disparities. I mean, it's like
baked
very
in.
Clear.
Yeah.
It's very clear who is behind.
Yeah. Real quick, if you're just jumping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise, News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price and Markey here with Dr. Tamara Ryan, and big thanks to our sponsor, the Jefferson School Foundation. Let's pull that thread a little bit. So you're thinking about sort of community level data. It's not focused on the schools. It's not focused on the workforce. It's just focused on the geography of Albemarle County.
Yes, it's focused on the geography. We do focus on the workforce internally as well. Our work does, particularly public safety. We have done a lot with our police department. Of course, our Colonel Reeves, he is a Hispanic, and so he is certainly tried to diversify the police force. And then Dan Eggleston, who is our fire chief, he too has been, I must say, a great person who wants to recruit and diversify and wants DEI taught to all of the fire department, but particularly to the fire recruits. And they actually, so studying the numbers, they actually just had the most diverse fire recruits teams in school, fire recruit school.
Is that right?
Ever
I love it.
Albemarle County.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how are you measuring success or progress, right? What are some realistic, and I know so much of this is bound by, sort of legislative context and things that we really can't control, right? And I think might have had a different answer 2 months ago.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think that's fair. And I think a lot of people who are doing particularly work with real people in real time had to change their strategies and sort of their thought process of where the art of the possible could go. But for you guys, what do you look at as kind of, year one, year two, what are we trying to accomplish? What can we reasonably accomplish? And how are you going to measure success against that?
So we look at success, and I will go back to like the fire recruits.
Yeah.
It has been a white male predominantly white male,
Sure.
And so we have been able to look at the numbers and see how many women have come in, see how many people who identify as LGBTQ. We've had folks who are transgender come in, more women are coming in. And so when we look back 5 years ago and look at the data as of where we are now, it's like night and day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, it is like
that is success, right?
That is true success.
You go to bed saying, if I don't do another thing after tomorrow, that we made an impact in this way, right?
Yes, we made an impact in this way. And same thing with, the Southern Albemarle community.
Sure.
They needed, to have a focus on them, and we've been able to get a focus on them and really start some really great programs.
So this work is, as we know, especially this last month, is not easy. How do you take care of you, right? I think that's always hard for me, and the thing I'm trying to figure out every day is like, okay, I'm going to work, I'm doing these things, the climate's, crazy.
Yes.
But how do you, you have to take all that home with you, and how do you put it down?
I am good. I have gotten really good at that. And like you said, because of other roles that I've been in that we've just talked about, where I used to allow myself to be burned out, I now allow myself to, if I'm going to be working on a weekend for a community event, I will take a day during the week.
Okay.
And I will take 4 or 5 hours or whatever I need to say, you know what, I'm going to get my hair done. I'm going to get my nails done. I'm going to do something that is just for me. And I shut off the computers. I put my out of office on, because if I don't set those boundaries, then, that's how you get burned out. But I'm good at setting boundaries and taking the time. And I think I'm very thankful that Albemarle County allows me to
the flexibility,
that. Yeah, they offer me the flexibility. So.
Oh,
well, I got
the question I wrote that I really wanted to ask you was like, what is the piece of advice that you live by?
The piece of advice that I live by is a biblical scripture, actually.
Amen. We've evangelized here before. I think,
we gotta go get a preacher.
We've had a couple preachers.
Okay.
Yeah. Do y'all do that thing that I ascribe to growing up in a black church, where even when I speak publicly, there's like an involuntary call and response?
Yeah.
And so I'll say something.
Or
I'll just say something and be like, I'll be like deal, and nobody will look at me, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Like that's not a thing that
I've been in a crowd and somebody's like, "How y'all doing today?" And I was like, "Good." And I'm going,
I know.
"Yo, it's a call and response."
Like that,
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah.
Oops, we at a conference.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, exactly, right, yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, I live by Hebrews 11:1, and I think that's even more important at this time, which says we walk by faith and not by sight.
Amen.
So as much as right now people feel like, all kinds of, they're feeling so many different things. And particularly in DEI, it would be easy to get down and be like, oh my God, am I going to lose my job? Oh my gosh, am I, going to be cut? Or
Yeah.
I have my bad days.
Yeah. But, at the end of the day, I always feel like I live by my faith, and I know that my God is in charge.
What's for you is for you,
and
it ain't for nobody else. That's what I live by.
Is for me, and no one can take that.
So talk to me a little bit about that, right? Like, is it just from a personal standpoint, how do you do that operationally, right? In an understanding that what you're doing work-wise is being overanalyzed, and to some degree, demonized. How does, I think we're in a bizarre moment where the incentives to continue to do this work seem to be receding. Right? It seems to be like we're gonna fund the schools. We're gonna basically leverage the levers that we have to keep the doors open against the people that are doing these things. Right? We're gonna stop the funding. We're gonna stop da. And how do you sort of match the necessity of the work and the importance of the work with the reality of, like, if you over-rotate on that, the whole thing might go away?
Well, you have to be strategic.
Yeah.
You have to stop and think, okay, so if they don't like the words DEI, what am I going to say?
Sure.
And still get that work done.
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
So it is. It's about being strategic.
Yeah.
So if DEI is going to be, a triggering word for some people, I'm going to think of other words and terminology and still get the work
Community
done.
engagement.
Is that what we're calling it now?
Well, yeah, community engagement. And that's, you heard me say that earlier. I'm like, hey, if I have a community engagement.
Yeah, right.
Then,
that's right. A bunch of people in the room like,
Exactly. Then
that's right.
That's how.
Yeah, that one seems like it's probably going to be it.
That's the one that's going to stick.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and it is all about the community. So.
I think this is a really interesting argument because there's this. I think there's a general sort of through line in American history of being disruptive, and that's I had the chance to meet the late John Lewis a long time ago before he died. But that was his whole thing, right?
Yes.
It was like make good trouble, and that was part of the thing, right?
Yes.
But then there's this also. I juxtapose that against a great article that I read about a young woman who won a Rhodes Scholarship. And there was all this controversy about the Rhodes Scholarship because Rhodes was not a reputable guy, and people were turning down the money and this, that, and the third. Right. And I thought her point was really interesting. She was like, look, at some point we have to be honest about, I need this resource, and if I can use it to do what I want to do, that's my get back. Right? Exactly. My get back is not taking it, it's taking it and then doing what I want with it and furthering. It's this thought puzzle, which I'm sure you guys have heard, where it's like, would you take $50,000 if the person you hate the most gets $100,000? And most people are like, no. But
that is a good question.
But the reality is like, you're losing out. Like, are you what are you willing to sacrifice in pursuit of kind of this other thing? And so I think we're kind of in that moment of like, what are we, and I guess this is a question for both of you guys who are, what are we willing to give, right, as practitioners? What is the right amount of, sort of selling that we're willing to do in pursuit of a potential greater goal? Right. Or are we moving backwards, right?
Right.
And I think that's hard to adjudicate in real time.
Well, I think that, number one, you have to be strong.
Sure.
And, dedicated.
Yeah.
I'm dedicated to do this work. I think of our ancestors who in the 1950s and 60s who were fighting and dogs being sicked on them and water hoses and all these different things. So when I think about them, it just puts more fire under me to say, you know what? I am not going to allow anyone, including the presidential administration, to stop what I'm doing and what I believe in. These are my values. He can't take those away from me. He can't take the knowledge that I have away from me. He can't take the history that I know, which is part of why they want to take history and rewrite it. So knowing that I am settled within myself about what I will and won't do, it just
I just think it's personal. So it's
Well, I mean, he mentioned Albemarle County.
I know.
Specifically.
I saw that.
He did. And Albemarle County Public Schools.
Yeah, I saw that.
He did.
Yeah,
but you can't be deterred by just one person.
Because if everybody was deterred by people, then we wouldn't even be sitting here.
Exactly.
If our ancestors was like, well,
exactly,
they shut down the counter. We can't. Girl, we gotta go to the next counter.
Exactly. Moving on to the next counter.
That's funny to think. That's like if somebody were deterred by people.
That's
and
right.
any you could pick any point in history,
That's
we
right.
would be in a different situation.
Exactly.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think
I
that
agree
history was made by these disruptive forces,
Yes.
and I think it's interesting. And I wonder, I think part of that story too is, I think we have certainly not over glamorized, but you focus on the seminal figures, right? You focus on Martin and Malcolm and John and those people.
Right.
And I think what gets some people caught up is like there were a ton of other folks who weren't doing that, who were still important to the movement.
Exactly.
And so I think there's this other thing of like, if you are not that person or you're not comfortable being that person, I think sometimes we're like, okay, well, if you're not, if you're not that, then you're out.
Yeah,
Right.
but there's always something to do. I think that we need to get away from that. I think there is like you're either MLK.
That's right. Or you're not a part of the thing.
Or your unknown gravestone.
Right.
You know,
That's right.
like I just feel like
there's
something for everybody to do. Even if that's economic blackout, you didn't spend your $5 at the candy store today. I feel like we can all do something. If we all do a little bit of something, that's a big something.
And I think to your point, there's this theory of if I don't have big money to move something, if I'm not in a position of power or status, right? Like, or if I'm not willing or able to put my job on the line,
Right.
then how am I supposed? Like, am I able to contribute positively? Because again, you could make a cogent argument that like, the reason that all these names are going to change is not because people don't believe in it; it's because it's about money,
Right.
right? And we have to be honest about that, right? We have to say how far is anyone willing to go to lose the thing you need?
Yeah, that's
that's
the huge deterrent. The money.
Well, I tell people,
I need my checks to
follow the
clear.
money.
Of course.
Exactly.
Of
Follow
course.
the money. Always follow the money.
And so I think we sometimes are in this like, well, you just gotta do what you do, right? But the reality is that you can only do what you do for so long until the well dries up, right? And so, I think the hard part is trying to match that with the right amount of sort of, strategic stubbornness, right? To say that, like, hey, we can't sort of blow a hole in our own boat, but we do, there's an understanding of if we believe what we're doing is important, we have to find a way to stay some measure of the course.
Exactly. And I appreciate with Albemarle County, our leadership has been very supportive.
Yeah.
And I think that is a critical piece for anyone doing this work is having leadership that is willing to stand up and say, we support this and we're not going to go back.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are just tapping in, this is Envision Radio from the United Way of Greater Charlottesville and City of Promise. News Radio 98.9, 1070 AM WINA. Price Markey, Dr. Tamara Ryan in the booth. And again, a big thanks to our sponsor, the Jefferson School Foundation. So how is so outside of your county work, you're also doing a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
So talk about what else is keeping you busy outside of your outside of that core focus.
So I actually have started a personal and professional growth.
Yeah.
So
you just needed more things to do.
I needed more things to do, like I needed a hole in my head. But I see myself mentoring the next generation.
Okay.
So I'm in my 50s, and I know that I'm getting older, and I want to make sure that I look back, and I don't want to be one of the people talking about Gen Z and the millennials and all.
I'm tired.
Yes. So if I don't like what they're doing, then I need to mentor them and coach them and talk to them.
I feel like there is this thing where we're like, the generation behind us, we're always kind of negative as a society too, and we don't really reflect on the things that we were doing that are like parallel to that.
Exactly.
And it's so funny. I saw a story the other day where people were mad that teens were going to this hangout spot in the woods at the lake, and they were throwing trash around. And then there was like, somebody was like, oh, I went out there and I put a trash can up. And people started putting things in the trash can. People are like, I still want to complain. It's like, if you want to change the culture and the way people and children and people like below you are working, you need to be out there with them and mentoring them.
That's right. That's right.
Stop complaining.
Well, that's what I'm doing. So, yeah.
How's that going so far?
It's going well. Right now, I have 5 people that I am coaching. I'm actually coaching for money right now.
Sure.
And so, so I started my own company to actually do that because I've always been a mentor to so many different folks. And so I thought, well, wow. How about let me start my own company? And so 5 people, which is enough. Yes. And I love it. I love it. And I'm still mentoring people, not for money.
And you're focused on that age, sort of young professional cohort mostly?
I am. Most of the folks that I'm mentoring and coaching are in their 20s and 30s.
Okay. Yeah.
They're in their 20s and 30s. I have one person, though, who is 50. Who is a 50-year-old, but that person is going through a job transition, and so
we all need somebody.
Need help. Yeah, they need help, and so
What do you find to be the biggest obstacle for young professionals in any industry? You're mentoring them. Like, what do you see as the thing? They're like, I get out, I tell them up front, like, this is something you're going to have to deal with as this young professional, like that you're teaching your mentees.
Yes, wanting to be the boss immediately.
Don't do that.
Everybody wants to go in and they want to run.
That is very hard not to do.
Yes, and it's like, but what do you know about the company, and what do you know about leadership, and how do you lead a team? Do you know anything about leading a team?
Yep.
Who wants to follow you and why?
Sure.
I think,
Yeah.
So it's like,
in my younger 20s when I first started, I did want to be the boss. But it went away really quick. I was like, I can't. I'm not built.
It ain't all that. I think it's interesting though, because I agree with that, and I think there's 2 things. One, millennials are perfect, and I think secondarily, but I think what's interesting about that is that as the kind of the touch points of what work has changed. Mm-hmm. What you have, and I've worked for these people who are really good at a thing, but not good at the thing that like we were the best at when you talk about technology, right?
Right.
So we have, the old joke is like, why am I working for someone who doesn't know
Excel,
how to print a PDF?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
and I think that created like a very stark divide in like the tasks and the duties, and it was really hard to figure out like what any of these executives were doing, because they couldn't do what for us was the most simple thing, right? Like, stop asking me how the related section of YouTube works.
Yeah, that happened.
Right? Like, it's based on your search history. I can't explain this to you.
That happened to me. I was like,
like, why am I explaining this to you?
You don't know how to do this,
right?
And you at the top.
Exactly.
Well, right, and so I think that's so. I think that's interesting, and so I mean, but I think there is so much more, as you mentioned, sort of qualitatively involved.
It is
in doing these things, but I will still say that there is a little bit of dissonance in that.
Well, I think
in that world,
people told us that everybody started at the bottom and climbs up in a way in which you learn at each step. But if you're at the bottom and you're like, okay, I need to be learning all these things to get to the top, and then you realize there's a person at the top who doesn't know any of the things that would be needed to be learning qualitatively at the other steps. It's like, hold up. Actually, that means we all didn't do the steps.
Right, but that stuff didn't exist when they were climbing.
Right.
Like, that stuff wasn't there. So they were climbing a different ladder, right? Like this whole Excel, Adobe PDF, like that wasn't a thing, right? And so like by the time these people got to where they were,
that is a dissonance.
Those skills weren't necessary, right? And it's kind of the same thing when you look at like younger generations. It's like, y'all don't know how to change a tire, y'all don't know how to do any of this stuff.
Right. That was I do not know how to change a tire.
That was part of the edge. That was part of the thing, right? So everybody,
do you change a tire?
Of course.
It was a part of.
It was part of growing up.
Class.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
Part of driving class.
I bet
and my dad made sure.
Can you fold a map? That's not a useful skill anymore, but I know you can.
I sure
can.
A map. Like, have you read a map?
I've opened that map before, but it's pre-fold. Like it has a pre-fold
Oh
situation.
yeah, but now
going
it's a
on.
certain way to do it. And you got to get it back. So that was a part of school for us, like how to read a map and how to do the thing, and like.
Yeah, but I must say that to be a leader or someone in a higher role and position,
Yeah.
you do need to hire the people that do know how to get the work done.
Sure.
So a
That's
good
part of
leader
leadership.
is going to hire the people
Right.
who do know what they're
Yeah.
doing. That's
part
what
of
a
leadership.
good leader is, right?
And I think so. Talk about that a little more, because I think there is this truism that like the best. You've heard this with like sports teams too. I was just listening to the guy, the Eagles guy, just won the Super Bowl, and he was basically saying, people ask him all the time, like, how do you build this team? How do you build this team? He goes, I hired people who were really good at their jobs,
Exactly.
who were good people who I liked, and they were like, oh, like what else? He was like, that was it.
That's it.
Like that was it, right?
Yeah.
But is that my cynical question is that possible in an organization for people to understand that like their piece of it is important to the whole,
Yes.
and it is not the totality of the thing, right? So like if you're the data analyst, like you're better at data visualization than the person who your boss is.
Yes.
Undeniably. That's
Yeah.
why you're there, right?
Exactly.
What that is not is like that doesn't make you more important than that
Right.
person.
Right.
Right. And I think that's sometimes the thing. I read an article that was talking about the way we promote people is typically like people who are good at things
Right.
get promoted into like leadership roles
Right.
that they're crap at because they're not good at leading people. They're not good. They're really good at writing code. They're really
Right.
good at making videos. They're really good at graphic
Exactly.
design. And so I think it almost is like what we haven't created is like a parallel track
Right.
for people who are like sort of task oriented and really strong there. We have this vision of like, oh, once you get to a certain level, the only thing you can do is
see,
this big vision thing.
I love that Albemarle County, we do have a leadership track. So
Okay.
someone who says, I would love to one day be the IT director.
Yeah.
There is a program that the organization has in place. And like you said, not many companies do this. But they do have, we have a whole leadership track.
Love this.
Yeah, it's
Sure.
part of the learning tracks. We have different learning tracks, and one of them is to become a supervisor.
Yeah.
And so they teach you, step by step, and then even send you to certain, like to the University of Virginia for the LEAD program.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, for the SEI programs, the Executive Institute. So to help you prepare and to become a leader. And again, we have to do succession planning because again,
Sure.
people are my age, and 10, 15 years, I'll be out of there.
That's right. As a part of working with folks and young folks, I mean, is it how are you able to structure that in an era of sort of rapid technological proliferation? I mean, do we lean into that? Do you temper that? Is there, because it seems like there's sort of these two camps of like, well, you're always going to have to know how to do something,
Right.
or like the robots are coming.
Now, I lean into it.
Yeah.
I love Chat GPT, and I have the 4.0. I pay for the 4.0. And my husband, who's actually older than me, has leaned into it.
Okay.
So and all of my friends.
My mama love it.
Really?
Yeah, my friend group, we have leaned into it. So so I try
Happy
to
for
stay
her.
relevant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I refuse to just let things come and just because of my age.
Right.
Say, oh yeah, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let them do it. No, I'm like, hey, show me how to do it.
Yeah, once you learn, it's like, oh, well, at least.
Oh, I love it. I love it for everything.
Yeah.
If I want a recipe, I'll go, hey, Chat, tell me how to.
That is true. I mean, it is incredible. I mean, it is incredibly useful, and it is. I think that. What was your AI hot take again? It was a music thing.
It was a music thing. Oh, that an AI artist
that's
would
right,
win
that's right.
a Grammy
That's right.
this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
You just
yeah,
type
I saw
in,
that.
I want a Justin Bieber beat with, I don't know who, Kendrick Lamar.
That's it. There you go. That's it. Yeah.
Pop song, Justin Bieber
Yeah.
take Kendrick Lamar rap verse.
That's right. With a little salsa. in
And
there.
that's going to win. That's going to win the awards.
All right.
I'll be there dancing.
I'll be looking.
Fake
That's
drum,
right.
fake
I'll
drum.
tell you what. Yeah. The so what is Is that business for you something that will always just be a side hustle? Is that a thing that you intend to scale to be the main thing? Is it something that you're going to look to integrate into your county job? Like, how does that work? Are they always just kind of two separate entities?
Yeah, they're going to be two separate entities, and I don't know how long I will do it, but at the same time, number one, of course, it's people are paying me right now
love
to
that.
do, but I am always going to be a mentor. In fact, last night was one of the last sessions for one of the young ladies that that I was coaching. But I said to her, hey, you know that I'm not dropping you off and saying adios. Okay, you've paid me. I've given you your services.
That's right.
And so we were like, next step, she was like, okay, I'll call and get on your calendar. And we were just chit chat. So so I don't believe in just dropping people off and just saying, adios.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. No, I plan to mentor. Again, I believe in succession planning, and not just at work, but just for the future. Yeah.
If people want to get in contact with you about your services, where can they go?
So you can go to my LinkedIn page if you'd like to. That's Dr. Tamara Alexander Ryan. And so that's my LinkedIn page.
Let me go follow it.
Yes,
in there.
yes. So follow me on LinkedIn. Feel free to hit me up and message me.
Yeah.
And then I actually have my Facebook page, which again is Dr. Tamara Alexander Ryan as well. Pretty easy. And Dr. and Tamara is one word. And so they can also hit me up on Facebook Messenger as well.
And what I see you're also here on the board with the New Hill folks. There.
I am. I am on the board of New Hill as well as CIC.
Is that satisfying your public service? Is that your...
It does. It does. It satisfies my desire to get back to the community and, again, being a part of public service.
Yeah.
I love seeing us on boards.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you found that? Is it, just in general, like the nonprofit world, is it confusing, interesting?
No, I love it. It's interesting. Because, like you said, they're unpaid boards, so it's my time. But again, I feel like I am helping people who, if New Hill didn't exist, and I must say Yolanda Harrell is wonderful. If New Hill did not exist, there would be so many African American entrepreneurs who would not, be able to get a start. And she and New Hill, fulfill that that place here in Albemarle County. And I'm also on the Collaborative Investment board as well, CIC, with Stephen Davis. So once again, giving people the money
that's right.
to be able to fund their goals and their dreams.
That's right. Those are great folks.
Yes.
Big thanks again for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
That was excellent. And again, if you have ideas for the show or want to get in touch with us, you can find us on social media on all platforms at United Way Seaville or at City of Promise, or drop a note in vision at unitedwayseville.org. Run us those one more time. LinkedIn, Facebook, what is it?
Yes, Dr. Tamara Alexander Ryan, and it's Dr. DRTAMARA, all one word, Alexander, ALEXANDER, Ryan, RYAN.
Don't you dare forget the doctor. We get support on this show from our friends at the United Way. And, of course, big thanks to our sponsor, the Jefferson School Foundation, the proud owner of the Jefferson School City Center, where education, innovation, and community engagement come together to build a brighter future, dedicated to preserving and sustaining the historic Jefferson School. If you like what you hear, share this with your friends, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You'll get new episodes every week. And, of course, the best way to support our work in this show is to make a contribution: time, talent, treasure, City of Promise, United Way, or any of our other great local nonprofits. For Dr. Tamara, Ryan, and Marky, this is Price. Make sure to listen to all of our other episodes of Envision Radio. There's like 160 some
160
odd of
plus.
them. You got
Happy
a road trip
Women's
coming
History
up.
Month.
Yep.
Yes, and happy International Women's History Day tomorrow.
Yes.
Well, there you go. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.